Hello and welcome to Meeple Mentor Reviews. I'm Jared, and with me is Holly, and we're going to be discussing and reviewing SPECTRE, the board game. So this is a James Bond 007 themed game where the players are the villains. And there's a lot to choose from, but it is up to 4 players that can play. Now we did it 2-player, and well, there's a lot here to like, and maybe a lot that you may not like. I don't know. Might be a mixed bag. Let's go to Holly. What do you think?
Predominantly, it seemed like this game relied on chance, which, for once, I was actually lucky. I'm not usually good with RNGs, you know.
Right.
But I do like the area control aspect of it. I like the worker placement aspect of it.
You have 2 main pieces, which are your workers. You have your villain and the henchman. And, first you place your villain and you do an action on an empty spot for a villain space. Some of those are on your own personal board, so there's actions that can be taken there. And then the other is your henchman, which can go on other spaces for henchmen and or both. And as she was saying, some of it is area control because there's these 7 or 8 spots there in the middle of the board that are associated with various secret intelligence agencies and things that you want to go to with your agents and collect resources. But it's like intel and gold and blueprints for various things. But those are kind of the resources you collect. And so when you go there, you get an immediate thing, and then kind of after everyone's actions, the area control bit of whoever has like the most of their agents, which are their color cubes in each of these areas, gets to have an extra bonus for doing those things. I'm not sure if I liked how the first player situation turned out when it's based on how far along you advance on the SPECTRE track, right? And you have to be able to complete mission cards and secret mission cards, so they're like 2 different kinds of things, to be able to advance on them. And this is where the random part comes into play.
Yeah.
You might get a card and then you're not in a good position to be able to complete it. And you might get another card where you practically have already done it, and so you get an immediate advancement pretty much for no effort. And that amount of randomness, especially for turn order in a game that's area control,
and
worker placement,
yeah,
those 2 things, and having like kind of that first mover advantage, I found that in our game, she had a lot of cards that really helped her get up on the track really quickly, really early on. And I had some, and then I just couldn't get them done. And I'd try to draw more, and I just couldn't draw more, because in order to draw more, you have to like contribute enough to the general mission that everyone sees. But if I'm contributing to that, I'm not saving up for completing anything else.
Right.
And that was always at odds with me falling behind, because if you're in first, it's not so bad. You don't have to necessarily contribute as much to the general mission, and you don't necessarily have to go as far into drawing as many secret mission cards as you need to, because you're already in the lead.
Yeah.
That track and the way that you go up is a little bit too random for me to appreciate as far as this kind of game.
Like you were constantly playing catch up.
Yeah. And in a game like this that takes 45 minutes plus, to always feel like there's never going to be a situation where I can catch up.
Yes.
Man, that's frustrating.
Oh man, I get that.
It's frustrating. And that can happen in all kinds of games. But I feel like with this, this might be a game problem, not necessarily like how I played it. And she played fine. I just feel like because of a lot of the randomness of those drawn cards, you kind of go with what you have. And once you get ahead, there's not a whole lot people can do to really slow you down. One of the things they did try to do in the game to mitigate that is they have these placard name cards for number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and they have different abilities for being, further behind. But in a 2-player game, those really didn't make a whole lot of difference. And maybe if we had 3 or 4, there might be some fluctuations there between changing up that number 1. But in a 2-player game, maybe this just isn't ideal.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's yet to be seen how those 4-player games might go. But I think overall, my first experience of the game was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
I felt that if you want to talk about the components, the plastic cubes are fine. They're just, cubes. They're functional. The cardboard resources functional, but the worker themselves, like the villain and the henchman workers, they look exactly the same.
They really do.
One has a square base, one has a circle base, and they're cheap plastic, meaning that they look like they're going to break anytime you touch them. In fact, the one from the blue players looked already broken when I unboxed it, which you can see the unboxing of, because the shape of your pieces is this octopus, and the way it connects is right at the bottom of the stem of one of his center tentacles, and because it's like a pinch point, that pinch point is the only thing holding it on that plastic base. And if it's not a very thick plastic, it's not very strong, these are just dying to be like destroyed. And then there's no way to easily identify the difference between the villain and henchman player.
Right.
Because the base is the important part. I just don't understand why they did that. But there is one good component in here that I really liked, which is the 007 poker chip that acts as, James Bond foiling the plans that are on the board. Essentially, he comes out and, he can go to a villain to, remove one of their plans they're working on or expose a card that they've got so other players see what they're working towards. But then he also can occupy one of those worker spaces, that prevent anyone from going there while he's sitting there until he moves. So for like a whole round, one of those spots is just inaccessible. And maybe in a higher player count, that'll be even more, difficult to manage.
That also had a lot of randomness with it.
Right, because it's dice rolls.
Right.
Where 007 goes and who he affects is based on dice rolls, and the number one, who's the first player, is the one who rolls the dice and generally gets to resolve what's going on because they get a free reroll.
Right.
And man, that free reroll is a big deal.
It is.
I mean, because of how random most of this game is. So, yeah, it's hard for me to recommend the game because I love the theme. I love the Bond movies. I think, they did really well with the villains and their special abilities that they have on their board and having unique, special actions and stuff like that. I felt that overall the production it could have been better. I felt like maybe the artwork was lacking. There's just a lot of black and green.
There is a lot of black and green.
I didn't understand that because there's a lot to pull from in Bond movies and lore, and they're like, let's just keep it looking like a 1980s like computer monitor. I just didn't get that.
Maybe it's supposed to be clandestine.
I don't know. I just felt generally underwhelmed by the game, and it could have had so much more potential. And yeah, I would give it another shot at a higher player count. Then after that, kind of decide whether or not I'm going to keep the game personally. What are your final thoughts here for Spectre?
It's a lot of random. I like where I can plan and strategize and, at least if my plan falls apart, it was my fault. I'm not really big on random.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. Maybe skip out on this one unless you're a huge 007 fan and needing to have everything that Bond has ever, the Bond franchise stuff has ever come out with.
Or, if you have amazing luck.
Yeah. Oh, one other point, and this is laughable because the box and the instructions estimate that it's a 20 to 45 minute playtime. That is never going to happen. Never. I would say 45 minutes minimum to play this. And
Definitely.
We played it 2 players. So, you add two more players or so.
And that's definitely...
You're looking at an hour and a half. So anyway, throwing that out there as well. So anyway, those are our thoughts on the game. And yeah, until next time, I've been Jared.
I'm Holly.
I'll see ya.